Let's go ahead and get started, everyone. Welcome to the All of Us Research Program, New User Orientation. My name is Sam Stewart. I am a Scientific Research Project Manager here at the Data and Research Center, and I am part of our support team. So hopefully today I will provide you a bit more insight into the researcher workbench, kind of help you navigate the landscape so you can get started on your analysis journey. If anytime I'm speaking too fast or you have a question, feel free to come off mute, raise your virtual hand, or put your question in the chat. I am joined by a few of my colleagues from the Data and Research Center, so hopefully if I don't catch your question, they certainly will. We do kindly ask that you put all questions in the general chat. That way we can see it in a timely manner and other users may learn from your question. So we'll go ahead and get started. We have quite a bit to cover. And this is going to be recorded, and we already have a new user orientation posted to the user support hub, and I will add this one as well. So during today's presentation, I hope to give you an opportunity to learn more about the different data that we have in the All of Us Research Program and how that data is organized. We'll also see how you can start a project using the different tools on the researcher workbench. And then we'll talk and explore some of the support materials that we have, because I know that I'll give you a lot today, but you are not alone. We have various resources to help you. And then if time allows, we'll have some open Q&A at the end. So you may be asking, well, I'm new to this. What is the All of Us Research Program? So the All of Us Research Program is inviting 1 million people from across the United States to help build one of the most diverse data sets, hopefully in history. So we welcome participants from all backgrounds, and we hope that you as users of the Researcher Workbench will use that participant data to learn more about biology, lifestyle, and the environmental effect on health. And then we hopefully, you will use that data one day to advance that precision medicine initiative. As you can see here on your screen, we have over 400,000 participants in our current CDR, our Curated Data Repository. And of those participants, 75% are identified with a community that has been previously underrepresented in biomedical research. So who is included in our data set? In alignment with the All of Us program's mission and goals, our data set is intentionally diverse and growing in order to represent the diversity in the United States and abroad. So we have several categories that are listed here on your screen that we have denoted as underrepresented in biomedical research, to include categories that have to do with ethnicity, age, and even educational status. So I won't go over the numbers that you can see here on your screen, but if you do have questions, we do have something called a data characterization report on our user support hub that dives into the breakdown of these UBR categories. I'll give everyone a moment to review this. So we've talked about who's included in the data set. What about those participants' information do we have? So we offer many types of data, and to include survey data, electronic health records, physical measurement data, and wearable device data. We look at each data type in turn, and participants have the option to opt in to any of these data types at any time. Participant data is goes through our curation process where we remove direct identifiers, but the participant IDs remain consistent across the data types. So we'll go into this further, but you may want to look at survey data in conjunction with electronic health record data, and you can do both using the same participant ID. So as you can see here on our slides, we have a lot of information. So survey responses, again, we have over 400,000 survey responses, over 300,000 physical measurements. We also have genotypic data, such as genotyping arrays, whole genome sequencing data that we'll look into, and electronic health record data. You compare any of these data types with each other. So now we're going to look at the data curation process and the structure of the All of Us data set. This may be helpful for you as you're getting started with the All of Us Research Program data set to understand the way that you should look at the data when you're in the researcher workbench. So the image on your screen provides an overview of the All of Us data curation pipeline. We here at the Data and Research Center receive participant data from our partners, And then that participant data undergoes a curation process in which we go through quality control measures and remove direct identifiers from our participants and then upload that information into our secure cloud platform. The data set that you interact with on our Research Hub and our Researcher Workbench is called the Curated Data Repository. That means that data set has gone through this refinement process so that it is readily available for you to use on the Researcher Workbench. During this data curation process, we do something called data harmonization, and that is where we hopefully standardize the data to something called the OMOP Common Data Model, and we'll go into that in just a moment. And that way is you'll learn that data can come from different sources, and how do we know it's the same information across the data set? And we've hopefully taken that step out for you, harmonized that data so it's easily available for you to use quickly on the Researcher Workbench. So speaking about OMOP, so again, the All of Us dataset is organized into tables according to the OMOP Common Data Model. So OMOP stands for the Observational Medical Outcomes Partnership. And so this graphic is just showing you how those different tables are organized. So for example, we have EHR data that could be pulled into various different tables, such as the visit occurrence table, the procedure occurrence table, drug exposure, the person table, etc. So for clinicians, you might be used to working with an EHR sheet, it has observational data or subjective information. We take all of that and organize it into different tables for you to utilize. Now, if you're unfamiliar with OMOP, that's okay. We have a couple resources that might be helpful to you. So the first one that I'll highlight is Athena. Athena is a searchable database maintained by the OHDSI. OHDSI stands for the Observational Health Data Sciences and Informatics group. They have their own website that helps manage OMOP, and they give you a good overview of the Common Data Model on their website. And in Athena, you can search for terms to see if there are standard concepts that match this, and you can even look at source information. We typically reference Athena if you want to look more about the mapping or the hierarchy. Athena would be a great place to go. We also provide information on our user support hub. We provide a list of tables and descriptions, and we also give more information on commonly used sources and vocabularies as well. One key thing that we also have is something called our data dictionary. And the data dictionary is just showing you how the All of Us data set is organized in those tables, and you can look through it. So you might be asking, well, how does this apply to me? I've not used OMOP before. So all participant data are transformed to OMOP when applicable. So that can mean, for example, let's say a participant does have a condition of type 2 diabetes, but in a previous EMR record, it might have been recorded as an ICD-9 code, and then another EHR record in ICD-10 code. But you want to make sure that you're looking at the same medical concept. Well, what we've done is we've taken those source codes and we've mapped it accordingly to a standard code. So when you are working in the Researcher Workbench, you'll typically see standard vocabulary, but if you want to work in source vocabulary, you can. We have a support article on this on our User Support Hub as well, if you want to dive deeper into this. So on top of learning more about the data, we wanted to give you some more information about ways that we protect our participant privacy. Participant privacy is of the utmost importance here at the All of Us Research Program. So we're going to review ways that the All of Us Research Program protects our participants and some responsibilities that you have as users of the Researcher Workbench. So first, I wanted to note that we do believe in sharing information about our participants widely, but also wisely. So we've created multiple tiers of access to the data set. So if you've already had the opportunity to browse our Research Hub, you may have looked on our data browser. That is our public tier. That just means anyone can see the information that we have about our participant, and that public tier information is summary statistics and aggregated counts. So if you go to researchallofus.org, you can look at the public tier data set in the data browser. If you're interested in learning more or working directly with the participant level data, you'll need to have access to the Researcher Workbench. And within the Researcher Workbench, we have two access tiers, the registered tier and the controlled tier. And we'll look at those each in turn. Hopefully in the future, we could offer more data types, including more access tier levels. So that's more to come. So I wanted to look at these two levels of access tiers, because if you're here, you're most likely have access to the Researcher Workbench, or you would like to get access to the Researcher Workbench. So the two tiers on the researcher workbench are the registered tier and the controlled tier. The registered tier includes participant row-level data with added transformations to protect our participant privacy. So that means that you can look more granular at each participant event to include information about the data types we discussed further at the beginning. One thing about the registered tier is there are some generalizations and date shifting. For example, some dates are shifted backwards by a random number of 1 in 365, but that date shift is consistent across the data types with that same participant to preserve temporality of events. Now, within the controlled tier, you have to do an extra layer of data access requirements, but the controlled tier has less added transformations and you get more expanded access to data types to include the genomics data type and other survey data is in the controlled tier only. So if you're wondering, well, which access tier is most appropriate for me and my needs, you can kind of look on our user support hub and we say, which access tier is better? We have an article that kind of explains what's suppressed in the registered tier versus what's available in the control tier. So depending on the project that you have in mind, you may need control tier access, or you may just need registered tier access. So let's talk about some responsibilities that you have as a researcher using the researcher workbench. We have crafted policies to protect our participants. And under the data and statistic dissemination policy, we ask that all of us researchers do not share participant level data. This includes screenshots, copies, downloads, or written text about anything you see on the researcher workbench that is considered participant level data. We do ask that if you want to disseminate data and give summary statistics, that you do so in aggregated buckets of 20 or greater, meaning that any calculations that are less than 20 that you remove from disseminating outside of the researcher workbench. For genomic data, we also ask that if you are looking at allele counts, that you have your allele counts be greater than 40. We also wanted to just talk more about that aggregated statistics when you're disseminating data or presenting your data that you've used the researcher workbench for. So any downloaded table should have counts that are rounded to 20 if you were trying to present in a presentation or a publication. And so on this next slide, we have some examples. So in this slide, this is going to show two types of examples, one that's in violation of our policy and one that complies with our policy. So in the first diagram, you see that that last column has less than 20, 85 years old. But what we could do is we could use the other categories to back calculate the exact in number for that 85-year range. In order to prevent being in violation, we collapse the last two or three groups into one group so that you can't back calculate that count less than 20. Now, you might be saying, well, that's a lot of information. How do I know what I can download? We do have an article called How to Comply with the Data and Statistics Dissemination Policy that has multiple figures and multiple different use cases so that you can review before downloading information or disseminating information. So when you are ready to publish or present, we do provide a checklist on our user support hub. This helps you to ensure that you're in compliance with our policy. And at any time, if you have questions, we're here to help. So feel free to reach out to us at support@researchallofus.org. So now we're going to look at the different data types available if you are using the registered tier dataset. So within the registered tier dataset, we offer electronic health record data, survey data, physical measurements, and wearable device data. And we'll briefly look at each in turn. So I wanted to go back and remind you that in the registered tier, we do have some added transformations in order to protect our participant privacy. In the registered tier, you may notice that there are some fields that are removed. For example, there are explicit identifiers that are removed. Geolocation data is specific only to state level. Death causes are not available in the registered tier, and neither is COVID vaccination status. We also do that date transformation I mentioned, where the dates are shifted between a random number of 1 and 365. And then some demographic fields in the registered tier are generalized in order to protect participant privacy. So within the All of Us research program, participant-provided data, or PPI, is collected via surveys. And as you can see on your screen, that we have several surveys that participants have the option to take. The only survey that is required is the basic survey. Of these surveys, we have stored these in a couple places, the observation and the person table. Survey questions and answers are transformed into the OMOP Common Data Model, and we have several places on our user support hub to help you kind of field out the questions and the answers. We have taken these survey questions, and they're often from well-sourced national studies. And so if you have questions about what is the breakdown of the survey, what are the type of questions that are asked to the participants, and what are the options that they can choose? For some researchers, it's really important to say, do they have a multiple choice option or just a one click? So we provide all that information to help you in your project journey. You can also visit the Survey Explorer on our Research Hub, which is publicly available, and that will give you a PDF version of what the participant sees when they are taking the survey. It also lists the amount of items. For some researchers, the item count is very important. Some participants may be fatigued as they take a survey that's a bit longer, and that might skew the results that you see. So all of that information is available to you to take in consideration. The next data type we'll explore are our physical measurements. So physical measurements include blood pressure, heart rate, height, weight, body mass index, and waist and hip circumference. As part of enrollment, participants have the option to provide physical measurements through an in-person appointment or self-report. If a participant does not have height, weight, or other physical measurements recorded, you can also source this information from the electronic health record. Concepts related to physical measurements are located in the measurements table. You'll know if a participant provided that information or for its source from EHR by looking at the vocabulary column in the researcher workbench. If it says PPI, it means that the participant participated in an enrollment site visit in which they gave their measurements at the time of their enrollment site visit. Electronic health record data is another data type that we offer here in the All of Us Research program. So at time of enrollment, participants have the option to opt in to allowing access to their EHR data. Currently, we only have participant data with EMR participant data associated with HPO sites or health provider organizations that are part of the All of Us Research program. So concepts for EHR data is standardized and stored in about 14 plus relevant OMOP tables. So if you are working with electronic health record data, we highly recommend you get familiar with our data dictionary. This will help you understand where some data lives that may be in the EHR. So for example, you may need to look across multiple tables to get a good sense of what's going on with the participant in their EHR. We also have it where it's readily available in our point and click tools to choose concepts from any of these data types, and we'll go into that soon. Our wearable device data we currently have is from Fitbit. And so we provide different information about participants who utilize Fitbit to include step, heart rate, activity, sleep, and newly released device data table. And so in those 6 All of Us specific tables, you can see more about this participant level data. Now, I want to note Fitbit data is not the same structure as OMOP. Fitbit data is specific to All of Us that we receive, and we have lots of resources on how to utilize Fitbit data in the researcher workbench. So now we'll look at what's provided in the controlled tier dataset. So the controlled tier dataset launched in March of 2022. And so since then, they have the same data type as the registered tier, but it houses the genomic data, COPE survey data, and expanded demographics. It just essentially has more granular information about the participants. So as I've already mentioned, both the controlled tier and the registered tier have the same data types, with the controlled tier having expanded information. That includes the different data types in which, for example, race and ethnicity may not be as generalized the same way it was in the registered tier. So if that demographic category is important to you and you want to see more granular information, the controlled tier data set may be for you. Another difference is, for example, geolocation data. In the control tier, geolocation data can be generalized up to 3 digits of the zip code versus state level at the registered tier. So those are all things to consider, as well as you must have control tier access to interact with the genomic data on the researcher workbench. That being said, we are so proud of the genomic data that we have here at the All of Us Research program. We know that's a field of study that's becoming increasingly popular. So here, the All of Us genomic data set includes short read whole genome sequencing data, long read whole genome sequencing data, and microarray genotyping array data. And as you can see here on your slide, we have quite a bit. So over 200,000 short read whole genome sequencing samples, over 1,000 long reads, and over 300,000 array samples. So we have information about this on our support hub called How the All of Us Genomic Data is Organized. If you are highly interested in using genomic data in the All of Us platform, please spend some time reading through that article to determine which data set is best for you and your use in your analysis. So we do provide variant data in the variant data set. So before I get started, this slide has a lot of information. It's not for you to read through all at once, but just to show you the different data formats that we have for our genomic data set. That being said, we do provide variant data in the variant data set, or the VDS, Hail Matrix table. We have VCFs, or variant call format, BGen, and PLINK. Raw data is available in CRAM and BAM files. We do want to make a caveat that raw data is for genomics is highly expensive. So there are a few considerations that we've posted before you all utilize that data set. And at any time that you have questions saying, well, which data set is best for me? Which format is best for me? Feel free to email us. We'd be happy to give you recommendations. We also offer a variety of tools to assist users with their genomic analysis, as listed here on your slide. Some common tools that are utilized for genomics data includes R and Python packages, command line tools such as GATK. You can access robust computational environments like Dataproc clusters. We also provide workflow tools like Nextflow, DSUB, Cromwell. So all of those things are available to you, for you to use on the researcher workbench. That being said, genomic data can be paired with other data types. Many researchers have looked at genomic data across EHR data, genomic data, wearable device data to get and make inferences about the data set. So we highly recommend that you do that. And if you have questions, let us know. So now that I've explored the data that's available for you to use on the researcher workbench, I hope to give you more insight about the function of the researcher workbench and how to start a project. So there are a few main sections on the researcher workbench to help you navigate the data set more easily. So within the workbench, you will have something called a workspace. A workspace is where you're going to build and analyze your data set. And within each workspace, you can access our point and click tools. There are two that I want to highly recommend, our dataset builder and our cohort builder. And we'll go into each of those in turn. And so the cohort builder will help you select basically the population of interest that you would like, while the dataset builder allows you to select variables and values about your cohort. So for example, if you're interested in specific medical concepts about your cohort, you would use the dataset to choose those concepts. Once you have selected your cohort and your dataset, you would be ready to use one of our applications, such as Jupyter Notebooks, RStudio, SAS, etc., for your analysis. So this is the typical life cycle of a project within the researcher workbench. Now, please note, depending on the scope and framing of your study, there could be additional steps to this, or timing may differ depending on each step. So first, you'll create a workspace. You can use our point and click tools to query the data, or if you're familiar with the dataset structure and SQL, you're more than welcome to query the data in a custom query. You'll analyze the data using your application of choice, whether that's Jupyter, RStudio, SAS, or even directly in the terminal. You'll evaluate your results and then hopefully share your findings. So collaborators can be added to your workspace as well at any time, as long as they have the same level of access, meaning if you're working in a controlled tier workspace, they will need controlled tier access in order to be shared. So before you can create a workspace, it is important to describe more about your project through the workspace description. A meaningful workspace description is one that fully answers the who, what, how, and why of your research project in just plain everyday language. The reason for this is that the information that you provide here in your project description will be available on our publicly facing research hub on our research projects directory. This just allows transparency of how participant level data is happening, and it also allows researchers to find you. So if you're working on a project that another institution is also interested in, and they read your description, that might help connect you all. So in your description, it includes a title that's reflective of your research purpose, articulates your research question, it's important, and addresses your population of interest. So if you have any questions, we do have a sample workspace description on our user support hub that you can review at any time. You can also search through the research projects directory to see how other researchers frame their project description. So now that I've given you more information, I'm going to go ahead and get into the researcher workbench to show you just a quick live demo so that when you start on your project, you have a way to learn more about the landscape. So when you are in the researcher workbench, this is what you will see. Now, this is the front landing page. If you are just getting started, there is one area that you should start with first. So underneath your profile, there'll be a section called data access requirements. So meaning if you are brand new and you haven't done anything yet but log in, you will go to data access requirements. And there are some steps for registration that you must complete before getting access to the data set. That includes doing your Google two-step verification, verifying your identity, and completing the responsible code of conduct training. If you want additional access to the control tier, you'll also need to do control tier training and then sign the data user code of conduct. A frequently asked question is, well, how often must I do these requirements? We do have researchers do annual renewals of their data access requirements each year. You will receive an email notification when you are due for renewal. So after you've gotten data access requirements completed, you're then able to create a workspace. So I have several workspaces because I've been in the workbench for a while, but if you're new, nothing will be populated here on your landing page. If you want to create a workspace, there will be a tile that says create workspace if you're new, or you can click this blue plus sign. Here is where you're going to give your workspace a name, choose the access tier, and the version. So what you'll see is it'll say register tier and then the dataset version. Now, dataset version just means that we have released iterations of the curated data repository. So version 7 is our most current iteration of the CDR. But if you want to go to a previous dataset, you're more than welcome. And then you can choose everyone, you'll learn this, everyone who's new to the researcher workbench gets a $300 of initial credits, or you can create a billing account if you would like. And here's where you're going to fill out more about the workspace description that I mentioned earlier. When all of this is filled out in completion and correctly, this will populate this as create workspace, and then you can create your workspace. Now, once a workspace is created, but you want to change something, that's perfectly okay. Once a workspace is created, it looks like this. And in the About tab is where you can edit things about your workspace to include the description. So let's say that you want to change more about the description or even change the billing account. You can do that from the About tab of your workspace. Another wonderful thing about the About tab is it will tell you who your collaborators are, the creation date of the workspace, how much the workspace has cost you, and gives you some more of your cloud information like the Google Project ID or the workspace bucket information. These two things here at the bottom, which are hidden away but very valuable. So here, if you are curious about your billing or your spend, you can click View Detailed Spend Report, which will take you out to the Google Cloud Platform Billing Report. Or if you just want to see your workspace bucket files just in an easy way, you can click here as well. The next tab that I want to explore within a workspace is the Data tab. So this is where those point-and-click tools are available to you. The first one is the Cohort Builder, and the second one is the Dataset Builder. The Cohort Builder is going to help you build a group of participants that you would like based on specific inclusion and exclusion criteria. The Dataset Builder will help you build more information about the concepts related to your cohort. Within the Cohort Builder, you have the option to search by different domains, like EHR domains, demographics, surveys, physical measurements, or other concepts. So for example, if you're interested in participants with hypertension, you can either do a keyword search of hypertension and see what populates. So we have some survey questions about it, some information in the EHR conditions domain, etc. So if I was just interested in the condition of hypertensive disorder, I would select that here. Now you might have noticed that, oh, it selected other things. That's because hypertensive disorder is a parent concept in a hierarchy. So as you learn more about how the data set is built, these concepts are in parent and child code hierarchy formation. So meaning hypertensive disorder is the parent concept for all of these child concepts underneath. So if you select the parent, it will choose the child concept. But if you don't want that, you can just choose each one of these individually without choosing the parent concept. And that's sometimes helpful to make sure that you've gotten all or captured all the information that you would like. Once you've selected a specific criteria, you can visit the select criteria here to make sure it's correct. You can also apply modifiers, meaning I want all the participants who were a certain age at this event, or after a number of occurrences, etc., or during a specific type of visit, like an emergency room visit, for example. Once you have that, you can select finish and review, and that will save your inclusion criteria, and that will be the first inclusion criteria for your cohort. Now you can add more criteria. Let's say you want participants with hypertensive disorder and you want them to be of a specific race. Let's say Black or African American, Asian, or more than one population. You can select that and then come back. So we've selected a condition and a demographic, and it will give you the total counts, meaning that this cohort of participants has both this and this. And you can continue to add groups as you need. You can also use the or operator, saying I just want this or this, and it'll give you the similar return. And if you want to exclude people from your cohort, you would add the exclusion criteria here. And then this high charts graph will give you a breakdown of your cohort. Once you've included all the inclusion and exclusion criteria, you would go to create cohort and give it a name. I'll just say test 4 and save. And now that cohort is saved. So even other collaborators should be able to see the cohort. And then from there, you can create another cohort, review your cohort, meaning you can look at a subset of the cohort that you created row by row before you get into your dataset builder, or you can do a dataset. The dataset builder is the second tool that is very important. So we have some inclusion criteria, and as you can see, there's our cohort here. So while the cohort builder included hypertension and the demographics of the race that we included, it didn't include any concepts. All the cohort builder did was pull person IDs based on the criteria that I provided. But the dataset builder is going to pull those concepts about those participants. And so that's why if you still want to look at the row level of when that hypertension was diagnosed, is it being treated, that's where you would still add these concepts here. So I'm going to add hypertension again. From the condition domain, select that, finish and review in a very similar manner, and then save the concept set. So you can either add it to a previous concept set or create a new one. I'll create a new one here and save. And then go to create a data set. So what you'll notice is your cohort will still be there. And then your concept set that you just created, hopefully it will load soon, will also be there. So that custom concept set will be there. And then once those load, you'll be able to select values in that third column. So for example, the start time, the end time of that condition. If you want to look at the source concept ID, if you want to look at more, for example, if you're working in the measurements table, it'll have units. So those are different things that you can build up into your data set. Unfortunately, it's not loading. Let's see if I can add one in prod. I have a data set in prod. But here is where I have my previously created cohorts. I have many custom concept sets, but this one is diabetes. And then I just wanted the person ID. I wanted the condition start and end times. And that's really all I wanted for this. So if I select preview table, it will show me how the rows and the columns will look for my data set. So I can do that here. Hypertension. And then you can deselect or select all the columns that you would like. And then this is kind of what your data set is going to look like when you're ready to export it. So it'll have that row of that person ID and different columns based on the concepts and values that you would like. Once this looks appropriate to you and how you want the data set to look, you'll go to create data set and save it. So I'll call it test 4 and then save. And then from there, you will select analyze. Now, after this is the part where you're getting into the cloud analysis platform in terms of cloud computing. So up until this point, nothing has been charged. You've just created your data set in your cohort. But once you're ready to analyze, you will choose your analysis application of choice. So we have several. We have Jupyter Notebooks, SAS, RStudio, and if you're wanting to work with workflows, Cromwell is there as well. You can also access the terminal directly here. But I wanted to show you guys some things about the cloud analysis environment pane. This will show you the cost per running, cost pause, and the storage option of a persistent disk. So this is for a standard environment. You can customize your environment, but as you do so, the cost will change as well. So just make note of that there. If an environment is fully deleted, there will be nothing there. But if an environment has been started, there will be a green circle here for each of those so that you know that the application is currently running and active and that you are being charged. So you can do the same thing for SAS here and RStudio. Now for SAS and RStudio, I did want to make a caveat. If you do not want the app to continue to run, highly recommend you select automatically delete application after 1 day, 3 days, 7 days, so that if you leave the workbench and you forgot that it wasn't on, it will stay active and I don't want it to incur charges for you all. Jupyter has an auto pause after certain time frame. So if it's 30 minutes, it should auto pause and it should go into pause state. So that's just the main pieces of your workspace. Now, we have tons of resources to help you. So you'll notice on this side, you have something called featured workspaces, where you can get some tutorial information, sample code, etc. So our tutorial workspaces is where you should start. This will show you different ways to utilize the data set. So for example, if you're interested in working with genomic data, highly recommend starting with this workspace, how to work with the All of Us genomic data set. It has both some great information about GWASs, HALE, and PLINK, and just how to extract that information correctly, and even breaks down a little bit about cost as well. Demonstration projects kind of show you more of like end-to-end analysis, like it's a sample project from end to end. One of my colleagues helped write these LDL GWASs, and I'm very proud of them. So feel free to take a look, gave a lot of detailed information as well, and some other demonstration projects. So for example, SAS is new, but we had a demo team put some information about their end-to-end analysis about SAS. And we have an analytics guide on the User Support Hub to support this workspace. And then phenotype libraries are looking at electronic phenotypes implemented in all of this data set. So that will be end of our demonstration of the researcher workbench. Now let's talk about cloud computing and billing a little bit. So the curated data repository is stored on a secure cloud-based platform called Google Cloud Platform. And BigQuery is the serverless data analytics platform that we use to pull in the data set. And to access BigQuery, we utilize SQL. And so the cohort builder and the dataset builder that tool kind of uses a pre-generated SQL based on the clicks that you did. And so if you're not savvy with SQL and you just want to select that, it's generating a SQL for you and you can export that out to your data application of choice. So what is a cloud environment and why is it needed? So the workspace uses Google Compute Engine for computational resources. And Google Cloud Storage for storage on the cloud. And so when you open an application, like I showed you, Jupyter, SAS, RStudio, or even the terminal, you are interacting with the cloud environment, and that is when you're going to be charged. And we have a video on this on the User Support Hub that kind of dives deeper into it, but it's kind of helpful to know more about it so that you understand the way billing is set up. So here's an overview of storage, and this is a commonly asked question. So there are two main long-term storage options available in the researcher workbench on the cloud as of right now. The first one is the workspace bucket, and the second one is the persistent disk. All workspaces have an associated workspace bucket for storage, and it's typically a very small fraction of the cost unless you have very, very large files in it. So when you create a general standard analysis environment, you can save to the workspace bucket. That being said, the persistent disk is attached anytime you create a standard VM. It is automatically attached. So if you don't need it for long-term storage, you can delete it. If you do utilize it and you're very savvy with the way that Google uses his PDs, it's kind of like a USB drive. You can attach and reattach it. It does have some incurred costs. The larger the PD, the larger it costs. Sometimes you need a larger PD to hold bigger files. So that's just something to keep in mind. Now, if you use Dataproc environments, there are just the two storage options, the standard PD and the standard disk and the workspace bucket. But the standard disk kind of acts like scratch space. You can't really save to it, so you'll need to save to the workspace bucket. We have a very lengthy support article to kind of help you navigate that storage process to help you better understand when to save files in certain places. Overview of cost. So how much is it going to cost to run your analysis is a highly asked question, and I will say it depends. It depends on how much data you're pulling from BigQuery. It depends on the length of the time that you're doing your analysis. It depends on how much you're storing in your storage option. It really just depends. So the amount of data, how robust your environment is, the amount of time it takes in that active environment, and the storage option that you're using kind of is a very quick and dirty way to think through how much you're going to be charged. That being said, let's say you're working with Cromwell. That's an additional charge on top of what it costs to do other parts of your analysis. So on the Research Support Hub, we have something called What Exactly Am I Paying For? That article goes into detail about the different considerations when it comes to billing and cost. So as I mentioned earlier, the All of Us Research Program provides $300 in initial credits for each registered researcher of the Researcher Workbench when they first start. And then after you've exhausted those credits, you will then need to cover the cost using a Google Cloud billing account. And so we do have resources to help you navigate that journey a little bit more smoothly. Typically the $300, if you optimize your workspace and make sure you read all our support material, that should last you quite a while. But if you run out of credits, we're here to help and to show you other resources to sign up for a Google Cloud billing account. That being said, I've given you so much information today. For some of you, it might be a little bit of information overload, but we have so much information in our user support hub that I've referenced many times. So you can go to researchallofus.org/support or just scan the QR code that will take you directly out to our user support hub. I kind of think of the user support hub as a living, breathing thing, because as we get more resources on the Researcher Workbench, we add more articles, more resources, more videos to meet your needs as a researcher. We also offer various opportunities for online support. So you can submit a ticket to our help desk by emailing support@researchallofus.org, and one of our team members will be happy to assist you. We do offer live events such as this one. A couple we have are drop-in office hours, which happens weekly on Tuesday at 1 p.m. Central Time. It's hosted by myself and a few members of the DRC, in which we answer questions live. So if you have questions about a specific code, or you're running something, or just need general help, that's a great place to come to. I will note that is closed to registered researchers only. And then we have Friday office hours that happen every other week. And during those office hours, we have a subject matter expert or someone from our support team present either their presenting specific resources, tutorial guides, etc. And I post all of those videos under the video section of the User Support Hub. And if you're interested in staying in touch and learning more about what researchers are doing around the program, please sign up for our Researcher Roundup newsletter. It's a bi-monthly newsletter that gives you up-to-date latest news insight about the All of Us Research Hub, Research Spotlight, and different things that you can use the Researcher Workbench for. And that being said, that is it. I will stop sharing my screen, and hopefully, I think we had a few questions in the chat. So I will review those to make sure I didn't miss any questions. I think my colleagues got them. So at this time, I'll go ahead and take questions. Feel free to raise your virtual hand or put them in the chat, and I'd be happy to answer them for you. Yasul, go ahead.
Hi, thank you for the great orientation. So my question is, I'm wondering what the recommended procedure or what the general practice is for current researchers using the database on regarding a new project that you're about to start, but you're not sure whether how should I put it? So for example, I have some idea what I'd like to pursue, but then I don't really have details about the project until I can look at the data set, to what extent the information is available to me. But it seems like the recommended procedure is you create a workspace, fill out the descriptions, and then you can start using the cohort builder, data set builder. And for me, the way I envision my projects is kind of like the opposite. I like to check out the data first, and then I'll have more details on my project. So how do people go about that?
That's a phenomenal question. Thank you for asking it. So you may create workspaces just to test things out. We do highly ask that you still be descriptive in your workspace description, saying, I've created this workspace with the intention of this research project in mind. And we understand projects evolve. As you get into the data set and you learn more about it, it changes. So that's where you can go back to the about section and make updates to the description as you're exploring. We also recommend you start with a small sample size. So start with a small sample size, especially if you just want to look and see what's available for analysis, and then scale up from there. That will help you kind of optimize your cost, optimize your all of us credit usage as well. So you are more than welcome to create a workspace to learn more about the data set. We just ask that you still be descriptive in your workspace description.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah, that's sort of what I had in mind or what I was hoping was possible. So great.
I would
Thank you
also
for confirming it.
add
Yeah.
one additional thing to what Sam said. And that's if you're just generally interested in exploring the data set contents in general, we also have the data browser available, which is a great public tool. So the counts will be slightly different because it's the publicly available version of the data. But if you're just generally interested in what's available before you even want to get on the workbench and create a workspace, then we recommend using the data browser, looking at our data dictionaries, looking through Athena. Athena is great for finding interconnections and interesting concepts that you want to keep track of once you move into the workspaces, the workbench and workspaces.
Thanks,
Okay,
Henry.
great. Thank you.
I think someone asked how to register for the workbench, and I think my colleague Michael put the link in there. So you go to the Research Hub. If your institution already has a data use and registration agreement in place, then you can navigate to the workbench and go ahead and get that registration process started. If your institution does not have a data use and registration agreement in place, on the Research Hub, we have a snippet of language that shows you what to do next to request a DURA for your institution. Michelle, go ahead with your question.
Hi, I'm sorry. Thank you so much for the great talk. Sam, how did you say we go to see what like a sample of how someone else started their project?
Yeah, the research projects directory.
Okay.
And I will put that in the chat as well.
Thank you.
Sometimes it's just, yeah, I'll actually share it with everybody. So if you're on the Research Hub, you can go to About, Data and Tools, or Discover. And under Discover, there's something called the Research Projects Directory. And our wonderful Research Hub team has gotten a lot of feedback about this. So I know there's some changes coming soon that I think you guys will really love. So hopefully it will load soon. But what you can do is you can browse by project title, the project owner, or scientific questions being studied, and just kind of see like, how did they frame their study? Who are the collaborators? What are their anticipated findings? So that's really helpful as well to kind of look through and see how people, and everyone has a different, description. Some are a little bit more in depth than others, but it'll give you a good sense of what's going on with the projects on the workbench.
Thank you so much.
I have a question. We were told that we could collaborate together with our partners and then pool resources. And how do you decide who pays for what? Do you just have to keep one project on one workbench and then one on another?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's not possible to pool all of us credits in one workspace. So that's not possible. But there's different ways lab groups and partners have done this. So they can either start part of their analysis on one collaborator's all of us credits. And then if they're ready to switch to another one, you can duplicate the entire workspace, or the person that you want to use their new credits, they duplicate the workspace and then add you all as collaborators, which will then pull from their credits and so forth and so forth. You can do it that way as well. Once you're ready to get a Google Cloud billing project, if there's just one billing GCP billing account, you guys can all have, and you guys are all access to it. You can all use it in your different workspaces as well.
Thank you. And are you guys by chance going to get any RNA sequencing data in the future?
It's a great question. More to come. It's been a common question, but more to come.
Thank you.
Any other questions I can answer for you all, or any parts that I can clarify? I'd love to do that.
Yeah, hi, I have a question so the question being, if you wanted to narrow based on a geographic location, where would you do that?
Oh, so you could do that in the researcher workbench. We
Okay.
have a couple let's see. So I will try to show you really quickly. We have an article on how to do this, but like let's say you're in control tier, we have a prepackaged concept set that will actually let you do this in the dataset builder. So if you'll see like, I might have missed it. It'll say zip code data. There it is, like zip code socioeconomic status data. You can click this and it'll bring in zip code data. It'll also, y'all just query it directly. And we have a support article on how to do that as well. And you can query by the state level and the zip code level. And I'll send you that article if someone hasn't beat me to it. Okay, if I didn't miss any questions or we have anything else, it was wonderful to spend time with you all this Friday. I hope that you get started in the researcher workbench. Again, you are not alone in your journey, so myself and my colleagues are here to help. Please come to our drop-in office hours. You can come to New User Orientation as many times as you want, and you can also come to our other events. You'll see our event calendar on the User Support Hub. I'll actually put that in the chat right now so that you can stay up to date. Otherwise, thank you all for being here, and we look forward to seeing you at our next event. Bye, everyone.